Meiosis. In this video series, you are going to learn how things are inherited, how there's variation when things are inherited, how do we get new genetic information. So essentially our bodies, they have two types of cells. They're called gametes, which are our sex cells, and somatic cells. Those are cells that are within our body. So somatic cells are diploid, which means they have two copies of all of our DNA. Each diploid cell has a full copy of DNA that you got from mom and then a copy that you got from dad. All the cells in our body, for the most part, are diploid cells. Everything from blood cells to ear cells to lung cells to muscle cells. We call those 2N. Gametes, our sex cells, are haploid. They only have half of our genetic information. There's really only two types of gametes. Those are egg cells in females and sperm cells in males. So it's also represented by N. N is half of our genetic material. It's a count of how many chromosomes that we have that we get from mom or from dad. So if a cell is 2N, then it has a full copy of DNA. Let me give you an example. So humans, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. So 23 is our N. Every egg and sperm cell has 23 chromosomes. All of the cells within our body, besides our sex cells, are 2N. They're 2 times 23, which is 46. So we have 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs. N equals 23 for humans. But N can equal a lot of different numbers depending upon the organism. I mean, if you're a fruit fly, then N is going to equal 3. If you're a strawberry, N can equal like 400. It just really depends. What's important is what's inside of those cells. Diploid cells, di, meaning they have two copies, right? That's the prefix di, which equals 2. They have two full sets of chromosomes. The set is usually from mom, and then the other set is usually from dad. So they're going to have homologous pairs. Haploid cells, it's still a full set of chromosomes, but it's half of the DNA that each cell is supposed to have. So it's called haploid. But in your haploid cells, this one could have been from your mom, that one could have been from your dad, that one could have been from your mom. So they're being split up inside of your egg and sperm cells. There's an easy way to remember these vocabulary words. Haploid, half, di, which is 2. But why do these look like they're different sizes? Why is this one so much shorter than this one? Why do they look so different? Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about next. If I was going to peer inside one of your diploid cells, this is what I would see. I would see 23 pairs of chromosomes. In these 23 pairs, they're numbered 1 through 23. You got one of those from mom, we'll just say, that's mom's, and one of them from dad. Then that one could be dad's, that one could be mom's, and so on. This is a diploid cell, like we'll just say it's a blood cell, all right? It has all the DNA, the genetic material that your body has. And each of them is going to have all the copies. Now what's fascinating is this diagram that you're looking at right here. This is a karyotype. Karyotype is a photograph, picture of all the chromosomes in one of your cells. This is fascinating how they get this. They actually will take cells from you, usually blood cells, and they will grow them until they're really high in number and then drop them on a slide. So they'll take a sample of them and drop them on a slide so that when they hit, they splat open, and then they'll take pictures of it until they can get the cell that is just at the right part of interface to where all of the chromosomes are coiled up. Someone's at my front door. Where all the chromosomes are coiled up and they can get a picture of them so that they can look at them to make sure you have all 23 correct pairs. All right, so autosomes are just your general DNA that carry all of your traits. You have 22 autosomes, right? So the first 22 pairs are autosomes. Your sex chromosomes, those are different. Those are down here in this purple ring. Those are what determine if you're a boy or a girl. That's the X or the Y chromosome. They are going to determine your sex. Girls are XX. They have two X's. Boys are XY. This karyotype is of a boy because there's an X chromosome, which is right there, and the little one, that's a Y chromosome. So just a little background information on how we got here, because, babies, they can't happen without a pregnancy, and pregnancy, that can't happen without fertilization. Fertilization, well, that naturally anyway, that can't happen without copulation. Copulation can't result in the offspring without there being an egg and a sperm. So where do these cells come from anyway? In other words, where do we get the cells that ultimately make babies? Oh, look at those babies. Aren't they just the cutest babies ever? Aww. So meiosis, that's the process of cell division that makes gametes. And gametes are made in your gonads. Gonads are the organs that make these gametes, ovaries in females and testes in males. Now, meiosis is going to produce haploid cells. Remember, that's N. That's half as much DNA. And they're going to be sex cells. Eggs are going to come from the females, and sperm is going to come from the males. So with half haploid, the number of chromosomes, as a diploid cell, we get sex cells. And sexual reproduction cannot happen without meiosis. It's the uniting of these two different cells that is fertilization. So here we have N. When they are fertilized, they will make 2N. This will be a zygote, the very first stage in cellular division, and these cells are going to go through mitosis. It's the creation of N that is meiosis. Sexual reproduction really means one thing. That means if you have an organism that is sexually reproductive, it means that there's a male and a female of that species, okay? And that type of reproduction, organisms reproduce sexually, like humans. We're an example of that. The fusing of their genetic information, or their gametes, from two parents, a male and a female, to produce offspring that are a genetic mixture of both of the parents. Humans are not the only organisms that reproduce sexually. Sexual reproduction means there's a male and there's a female. Like, did you know that there's a male and a female hollybush? There's male and female lizards. There's male and female invertebrates, right? Fish, slugs, different things. That's where sexual reproduction happens. Fertilization is when we actually fuse together egg, right, and sperm to form a zygote. In the drawing down here, you can see that here I have an egg cell, and sperm, which have the other part, here's N, and here's N, also in here, which have the other part of the genetic information, have to enter the egg cell, and the two cells will now become one. Their genetic information will be fused together, and this will be the process of mitosis. That's just normal cell division. duplicating your DNA, splitting it in half, making a new cell. Duplicating your DNA, splitting it in half, making a new cell. So ultimately, meiosis is done with the purpose of eventually going through mitosis to make a baby human or a baby lizard or a baby fish. In order for meiosis to happen, you have to start off with a regular old cell. So a cell that's 2N. Meiosis is going to take place in your gonads. So in females, we're in the ovaries, and in males, we're in the testes. And these organs are making sex cells. And inside of those cells, those organs, we have a full copy of genetic information that represents you. It's the same genetic information copies that are in every other cell in your body. So we start off with a diploid cell. Then they split in half to make N, right? So we duplicate chromosomes to split in half. And then in meiosis 2, we unduplicate them to make 4 different cells. So every time we go through a round of meiosis, one cell ultimately turns into 4 cells. So from one cell, we can make 4 egg cells or 4 sperm cells.